Ranking the Scene.
What the fuck is up, Warped Tour, the State of the Scene at SOTS Podcast on all social media. Sam here with Margos.
Hey!
Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of Ranking the Scene, where every week we bring 3 new albums to the ever-growing tier list and rank them against everything that's come before and everything that'll come after to see what the best album in the scene is, and coincidentally, the worst.
Again, this is the definitive list.
It's definitive as fuck. You've never seen a more definitive list of scene albums.
Once something goes into its place,
yeah,
it's locked in forever.
Permanently. As always, these albums were recommended by our fans on Patreon. If you want to recommend an album to Ranking the Scene, you can sign up at patreon.com/SOTS podcast for as little as $3 a month. That'll also get you benefits for the main podcast, as well as early access. Margos. Last week was fucking rough.
Last week was tough.
We went in with big bands, Panic at the Disco, My Chemical Romance, and Fall Out Boy, and spoilers, they did not deliver.
They didn't fare well. Let's see where they place, Sam.
Now, every episode of Ranking the Scene is on a nice little playlist over on our YouTube channel if you want to see everything that's happened up until this point, but it's not that important. So, pre-warning that I'm going to spoil the current standings, but it doesn't really matter. Ta-da! Your tiers from top to bottom, starting with GOAT, followed by Masterpiece, Certified Hood Classic, That Bitch, Just Okay, Pretty Mid, Fucking Awful, and A Crime to Humanity, where you can see, sitting all by its lonesome, the worst album we've ever listened to is Father of All by Green Day.
And last episode's albums all ended up in Pretty Mid or Fucking Awful.
Hovering right above the worst placement you could imagine. At the very top, we have the best album we've listened to date, Sempiternal by Bring Me the Horizon, followed closely by Disposed by the Plot and You, and Dying Is Your Latest Fashion by Escape the Fate. Now, this week, also there's like a smattering of albums there in the middle. You can see them. You know what they are
there
by their artworks. You're as familiar with the scene as we are, which is why I'm sure you'll have strong opinions. Make sure to share them in the comments of this YouTube video and leave a thumbs up even if you hate everything we say for the next 30 minutes or so. Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World, Tell All Your Friends by Taking Back Sunday, and Through Being Cool by Saves the Day. Marcos,
what do these all share?
They are quintessential emo albums according to our patrons. Quintessential. Classics of the genre. Their importance cannot be understated. I had not listened to one of these prior to this episode, Marcos. You?
Maybe all of them.
God damn it. Then let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
We'll start with Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World, which according to Genius was originally released as Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World.
As opposed to...
The fuck knows, dog. It's the 4th studio album, and it would be re-released as simply Jimmy Eat World after the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. What the fuck? It has since been re-released as Bleed American. When did this album come out? July 24th, 2001.
Everyone thought My Chemical Romance was the only band impacted by 9/11.
Right. And it turns out...
not the case.
More importantly, Jimmy Eat World had to rename their album. This is insane. It's crazy to think that, like, at a time where albums would be found on store shelves, they were like, yeah, Bleed American's not playing really well right now.
Right.
And let's shake it up a little bit. We'll just call it self-titled.
I think the funnier aspect of that is that Bleed American could be interpreted as Bleeding American. Like, I bleed red, white, and blue.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. Apparently not.
But apparently all of these naming issues, conventions, weren't that big of a deal in the long run, because I'm under the impression that this is the Jimmy Eat World album. And if you go by streaming, all their top songs are Bleed American songs.
So the big two would, of course, be Sweetness and The Middle, which are like, I would argue the Jimmy Eat World songs, bar none.
Yeah, and honestly, of all the albums that we will be discussing this week, the middle is like, again, I haven't listened to any of these albums. That is the one song I frequently seek out. Like, it's not on any of my playlists, but every now and again, I always get the itch to just listen to the middle by Jimmy Eat World.
It's not just a scene classic, it's an American classic at this point.
Yeah.
That being said, how did you feel about everything else that happened around it?
I honestly felt pretty good about everything that happens around that song on this album.
Okay.
It's not all incredible. Like, for example, I don't know that I love that it ends on My Sundown or even the Authority song.
I think both of those songs are bad, actually.
Yeah, and Cautioners is like a longer track that I think would have lent itself really well to being a closing track on this record.
Cautioners is probably my favorite non-single song on this album by
It's
far.
surprisingly good, and it's a refreshing track on here because, again, it runs long, but it's a bit of a slow burn. It's just a really great track overall. And the songs that come after it just sort of end the record on a bit of a
sour note, to be honest.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But everything before that it's pretty fun. That's sort of the thing I get from Jimmy Eat World, is they're just a band I like to listen to, and I feel like I want to feel good, you know?
Let me ask you this. Does Sweetness resonate as much to you as the middle does?
A little bit.
It's familiar, obviously, right? Like, you'd heard that song prior to going into this
Yeah.
album.
And if we're comparing them,
We are.
we are. It's a pretty great track overall for sure. Like, that chorus instantly hits.
I think if I'm being truthful, this album lives a little bit in the shadow of its singles being so extraordinary that it's hard for the vast majority of these songs to keep the pace. I like Cautioners quite a bit. I like If You Don't quite a bit. And I think Bleed American is a really strong opener. I also kind of get the impression that I think Hear You Me was also a single, and I feel fine about it. It clearly did not resonate the way Sweetness in the Middle did. But overall, I found this record to be kind of just okay, with these flashes of like inexplicable brilliance.
Genius. I do like some of the deeper cuts though. Like Your House is pretty solid. Get It Faster even ain't bad. But yeah, I think overall, like, Soured by Two Tracks overall lives a bit in the shadow of some of the biggest songs in music and the history of this scene in general. So ultimately, I don't fully know where I land. I think I'm more curious as to where you might.
This feels like a somewhere in the middle album. I don't know that I'm super passionate about it, but I wonder if we should keep in the back of our mind the reason they were suggested to us. Like, there's this implication that they were incredibly impactful within emo. And I think that within this generation, this album in particular feels like it's 8 weeks before albums got to the point where they weren't just singles records. You know what I mean?
Well, if it came 8 weeks after, then, you know,
right, obviously, and then it would have,
sort of tougher spot.
The tragedy of,
I think this record is better than Just Okay.
Okay, let me peek at Just Okay. I stopped first at the Beartooth record. And I think, like, within the metalcore genre, that's got some all-time staples. So comparatively, I think it's a similar record for me. And then I look at the albums right above it, and I think, you know, I probably am much more likely to visit Danger Kids or At the Skylines before this. And then Wage War is almost like a similar styled record where, like, its peaks are so incredible and then it's got some okay songs around it. I don't know that it needs to go higher than Just Okay, but I'm open to hearing your pitch.
Well, okay. I don't mind higher end of Just Okay. I think it clears everything at the bottom half of Just Okay for sure.
I agree there. The Wonder Years, Casey, Reliant K, Parkway, none of them are quite hanging. Emarosa, Paramore, Miss May I, slightly stronger, but also same argument. I think I might put the relevance of this above Beartooth, but I don't know that I would enjoy this as much as I do that Beartooth record.
I enjoyed this more than Danger Kids, if that's where the conversation's going.
Would you put it above At the Skylines then?
I hate
Would you put one of the quintessential emo albums above At the Skylines? A band who had exactly one album in like a really hot era of Arisecore for 2 years?
It's a good question. I think I would.
Would you put this at the top of Just Okay? Based on sort of the pitch you're giving me right now?
I think it's either in front or behind Beartooth. Or not Beartooth, Wage War.
Okay. Which is it then?
I'm going to let you decide.
I think I would sooner listen to Wage War. And the sneeze breakdown matters more to... Well, it is the sweetness and the middle.
Yeah, it is sweetness in the middle.
And this is the first tier that we've had break into a second row.
Wow.
Moving on, Margos. We also checked out Tell All Your Friends by Taking Back Sunday. Tell All Your Friends, the debut album from pop-punk/alt-rock band Taking Back Sunday, was released on March 26, 2002, after 9/11. The title of the album comes from the lyrics in Cute Without the E, cut from the team. The album is regarded by critics as a landmark in the aughts emo genre with Brendan... Oh, I gotta know this. What did Brendan Manley write in the alternative press? Sonically, there's just the right mix of well-honed production... Didn't quite hold up, and controlled chaos, ensuring that the music, which is as bold, melodic, and richly layered as anything else you'll hear in the genre, always impresses with its tonal immensity. They just don't write album critiques of emo records like they used to.
This record released as Tell All Your Friends,
yeah,
and stayed that way.
That's precisely correct. We both listened to the original version of this, the 20th anniversary version
noting
that has demos.
Yeah, there is a remastered version on Spotify. And I think for this entire series, I want to avoid remasters for the most part.
Yeah, it feels like cheating. I need to know the album like in its essence, in its time period. Like,
I want to hear this as it was intended to be heard.
In spite of the fact that I think the production on this is rough.
It's not.
It has not held up incredibly well. Marcos, I think this is another great example of a band who is so inexplicably extraordinary in instances on this record, it makes everything else around it sort of struggle to keep the pace. Again, Q Without the E come from the team, emo staple. Your Soul Last Summer, emo staple.
I just realized like the two biggest songs on here in Q Without the E and There's No I in Team both do like the letter in...
Technically, Your Soul Last Summer is like I think a bigger song than There's No I in Team.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
To the point I'm trying to make, which is two songs on here called Team.
And doing the letter thing. You're right, but they're right next to each other. So there's some sort of like symbolism that they're trying to like correlate the songs to one another. Marcos, it's crazy, like right at the jump for this album, how like
bad it is.
It's just like the production is so muddled that it makes everything feel like it's just been slapped on top of each other. So you're kind of like straining to pull pieces. And like, that's particularly problematic when you have a band like Taking Back Sunday, which intentionally
do a lot
of like blending things into one another so that like we're screaming over vocalists at the same time. Which is also like their calling card. I still think Taking Back Sunday and this little neat trick they had where they had two vocalists almost like play off of each other is one of the most pivotal, important things to happen to the scene. And I'm sure they may not be the first to do it, but for me, they were the ones who broke through.
And it's still magic to this day when you listen back on it.
Yeah. It's such a novel concept.
Yeah, they still fucking like when it all comes together and you've got these two sort of clashing, it still sounds fucking amazing.
It's so neat. Like, I never get tired of it. And I will also never get tired of the sass that is provided from Adam Lazzara. Every vocal delivery feels like his tongue is like lashing around in honey. It's just like, it has such a tone, it's such a delivery. Like, it can't be mimicked. You're born with this level of sassy delivery. And like, you can even close your eyes and picture Adam Lazzara strutting around stage, just like
Lashing
roping a mic all over the place.
honey.
Lashing a tongue, like one of the all-time frontmen as far as I'm concerned.
Certainly.
And lyricists. Marcos, and with my one last dying breath, I'd apologize for bleeding on your shirt. For me, arguably,
It's pretty perfect.
emo line of like the generation.
It's pretty perfect.
And then there's a lot of other stuff going on in this fucking
There's
album.
a good amount of things
fucking,
happening on
Blake
this
Seed's
record.
a fucking disaster. The Blue Channel's like, what the fuck
you know
are
how
we
I
doing
do
here?
is like the most boring chorus on in Taking Back Sunday's entire like discography.
It really is. And then this album just ends kind of with a couple songs after Your Soul Last Summer.
It certainly does.
It is a sloppy mess, but there's good in there. Great Romances of the 20th Century and Ghost Man on Third are, I think, also good Taking Back Sunday songs.
I don't disagree.
I had heard this album, by the way, and the last one, Saves the Day, is the one I hadn't heard prior. And going into this, I thought we might have like an all-time classic on our hands. Like, I remember in the back of my head this being flawless, and I just think time has not been kind to it. When I found this album 20 years ago, it was incredible.
Timberwolves in New Jersey, by the way. It's crazy how important New Jersey is to emo history.
It's fucking my cam. Take It Back Sunday. Senses Fail.
One of the bands here.
I want to say Thursday. Saves the Day. Are you going to say Saves the Day right now?
Saves the Day has the funniest Spotify.
Why? Why is it funny? I need to know.
Prepare yourself.
Yeah. Quote.
Saves the Day is a band from Princeton, New Jersey, and yet so much more too. Right. Elaborate. What does that mean? Because Saves the Day is also a byword for the entire emo sound, on which the band's remarkable influence has few equals.
Byword? What the fuck does byword mean?
Fronted today, just as they were then, just as they were when they first exploded as starry-eyed teenagers by the inimitable Chris Conley. The songs born of the frontman's open book emotional vulnerability have soundtracked a million lives the world over. Albums such as 1999's Timeless Through Being Cool, which we're about to get to, continuing to carve an indelible mark on the hearts and minds drawn to Saves the Day's anthems of love, heartbreak, and adventure.
Someone at a major label making 3 figures.
More than just New Jersey.
3 figures. 6 figures.
6 of them.
Wrote that copy, and they have, I guarantee you, been married to it ever since. Like, somebody like fucking whip smart just slapped that together, and they were like, yeah, I can write a fucking bio about Saves the Day. What are they're from Princeton, New Jersey, bro, but I bet you there's a lot more story to tell.
Well, what they have, the one album? Let's talk about that album.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. Hold on. We haven't placed Taking Back Sunday yet.
It's looking real good next to The Wonder Years.
Oof. The bottom of Just Okay. You didn't like this as much as Jimmy Eat World. That's an interesting start.
Oh, God, no. No, I enjoyed Jimmy Eat World way more than this.
Very interesting. I would not have thought that coming into this.
I don't know. This is an album I've intentionally avoided for a long time.
Why?
Because this is not my Taking Back Sunday. My Taking Back Sunday starts with Louder Now, and it goes forward to New Again, and then
what
it sort of
about
ends.
Where You Wanna Be, which was the beginning of the Fred era?
Yeah.
Set Phasers to Stun?
Yeah.
Fucking Photograph?
But it wasn't, again, like, we're still far removed from that era at this
Sure,
point.
okay, fair.
So, like...
So what do you, so you're, all right, you're looking at this and you're saying it's better
I just never
than
got around
Pretty
to
Mid?
it. Just never got around to it.
You're saying it's better than Pretty Mid.
I
You're
think
confident
so.
there.
I think that's fair. Like, I at the very least for sure take it over that Asking Alexandria album. So
okay, well that's a good start. But you're saying this doesn't cut the Wonder Years? This doesn't beat Reliant K for you? I'm very curious about
I don't know,
this.
man. I just didn't have a great time with this one.
Okay.
Definitely disappointed outside of the singles.
I don't have a lot of strength to fight for this one. Like, I don't feel like it gives me a lot of ammo. Like, I really come at it with the same argument as Jimmy Eat World, but like, if you're more down on it than that, then I don't know how to like change your mind about it.
I mean, it's the same conversation with a lot of these other albums, right? Like, am I gonna realistically want to go spend more time with this record over that Emarosa album? Even like, I don't know.
I would listen to this sooner than Reliant K and the Wonder Years personally.
Okay, well, I'd listen to it sooner than KC.
Are we hard stopping at Parkway, though?
Are we?
You know how I feel about that fucking Parkway album. I think it's a travesty, and I don't understand the respect that it gets. But I would not put this over Emarosa. No.
I do not remember that being your attitude against that Parkway album.
It's so fucking abysmally okay in so many ways. For everyone to, like, scream from the hilltops forever that, like, Parkway used to be heavy shit and good shit and real shit. And I'm like, yeah, 3 albums from this.
All right, let's put it just after Emarosa. That's where I'm
No,
at.
just before. I wouldn't go after Emarosa.
Oh, that's
I don't
what
think
I meant.
this is
After
okay.
Parkway.
We're same page there. Same page there, Marcus. That's 2 just okay albums, which leaves us with Through Being Cool by Saves the Day, which came out November 2nd, 1999. I think it is probably the oldest album we've listened to date in terms of like this ranking.
Might be.
Through Being Cool is the second studio album by New Jersey emo band Saves the Day. Well, obviously, Marcus.
Just remember,
like,
they're more than just being New
Jersey. New
Jersey.
Jersey losers, fucking recorded while members of the band were students at NYU. Through Being Cool is cited as one of the most important emo albums of all time by publications including Rolling Stone and more. This was my first time hearing this ever in my whole life.
Me too.
I had not even heard high charting singles Shoulder to the Wheel or Rock's Tonic Juice Magic, which are both in the top 5 of their Spotify most streamed songs.
Rock's Tonic Juice Magic has such a great name. I'm not gonna lie.
It is a fun name.
It's a fun name.
I almost want like the RTJM to actually like be a thing, but it isn't.
Yes. I'm gonna show my cards here a bit.
Okay.
This is probably the album I enjoyed the most so far this week.
I couldn't fucking believe it. I felt the same way.
It was good.
And I was like, is there something to like this zero expectation game that we're playing where like going into those other 2 albums, I know they've got heaters. We have history.
Right.
And then going into this, I was like, fucking whatever. Let's see what's going on with Saves the Day.
I mean, this has heaters in the sense of like, this is their biggest album.
I believe that's the case. Yes.
What is the
I was
biggest
familiar
song?
with the name. So the 2 singles are Shoulder to the Wheel and Rock's Tonic Juice
It
Magic.
is?
Yes.
Okay. It's definitely not a very big album then, just big for this band.
I think it was pivotal in emo culture. I don't think this band ever broke through in the way that like the real mall emo wave did, like My Chem, Paramore, Fall Out Boy, that kind of shit. And this is like a few years before all them really took off.
I love this album. I mean, I didn't love it. Let's
slow down. Like, let's not start. Like, let's not be crazy.
I'm the king of exaggeration, but
it was just like
I was really
everything
impressed
about
with
this
it.
album was weirdly entertaining. The vocal delivery, it's got like one of those Tom DeLonge-esque deliveries where it's like, are we intentionally fucking up like the syllable count in these words just because? Like, it's such a quirky delivery. I found myself like really drawn in by it. Some of the lyrics are so out of their fucking mind in a way that on paper is cringy, but in practice is almost like endearing.
This album could exist post 9/11, Sam.
Okay, calm down. We're talking about like, I want to touch your knee under the sheets. It's like, dog.
There are some.
What?
There are some in here.
There's one line in here that's like, I took a piss that lasted longer than you manipulating me. And I'm like, dog, you are on a whole other
these
level.
NYU students had one day in the studio and a dream.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Yes. I really felt connected to the singles, without a doubt. Third Engine and Through Being Cool, the title track. As well as Band from the Back Porch. I think The Vast Spoils of America might be like a deluxe song or something.
I liked Hollyhawks Forget Me Nots
Just
too.
because it's fun to say.
It's also a really fun title, yeah.
It's just like everything was like kind of clever and like kind of fun, and like the only song that I think I really didn't connect with was the Vast Spoils of America from the Badlands Through the Ocean, which I just thought was
You had to be there.
dumb.
You had to be there.
Yeah. In a pre 9/11 America.
Yes.
Yeah. Technically, I was there,
Well,
but I didn't check this album out at the time. It's actually crazy to me. It took me this long to check out an album like this that like has like a level of renown in the scene, and I just never got to it.
You've always known of Saves the Day.
Yeah, I've always been familiar. You know what my introduction to Saves the Day was that combo album with
Twisted
the vocalist from
Tongues
Say
or
Anything.
whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Twisting Tongues?
Which was I think it was Twisted Tongues. And it was obviously Max Bemis and fucking the vocalist from this band, Chris Conley, I think his name is. And I want to say they're literally doing like a tour on this album for like 25 years.
They might be doing that this year, yeah.
I know so absolutely fucking nothing about this artist. Now I will say this. There's no Your Last Summer on here.
There's not.
There's no The Middle. So like at its peak, it never comes close to having a song that's like as good at like as an overall album. I think it's strong, but it's never like a breakthrough like these.
How
bands
much?
had.
How much do you favor that though? Because at that point you
a good
have
question.
a very deep bench. We're talking 6, 7 really solid songs as opposed to 2.
I still think that maybe Just Okay feels right for this. Would you argue
Damn,
otherwise?
3 Just Okays this episode is tough to swallow. Maybe I didn't enjoy this the most then.
Because I don't know.
I don't know if I put this over Jimmy Eats
It was not
World.
that bitch, if I'm being honest, right?
No, it wasn't.
And like, while I find it to be a relatively enjoyable album, I think so much of it comes from the surprise of how much I liked it.
Sure.
And
yeah,
like
that's
its
part of it.
relative consistency, but I don't think it ever really like I was never fucking blown away by any individual track on here.
So
even
let's
the
start,
singles.
Let's start right after Taking Back Sunday. What's looking good?
Ooh. It might be exactly what you said.
Really?
You tell me. Look at those albums in between. Through Being Cool cleans Amorosa for you? Does it clean Paramore?
Put it there.
Does it clean Miss May I
need to see it. I hate that Casey's album artwork kind of blends in at this point.
hate it fucking too. I need to get like a brighter fucking 4K version of it and like up the lighting.
That doesn't look wrong.
I just like...
We're putting 3 quintessential emo albums in Just Okay.
Hey, you know, that's like the fucking deal. Like, what do you want? Like, this is how I felt about them when I listened to them. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to walk away from those albums and be like, holy shit. I still respect their importance. I still think that like Jimmy Eat World was like unequivocally and still remains one of the most important bands to come out of like alternative music. Like Sweetness and The Middle are like pivotal songs. Same with Taking Back Sunday. You're So Last Summer and Cutest Cut from the Team.
Cute is what we aim for.
We're gonna do a Cute is what we aim for album.
We do. Let's do all Cute is what we aim for albums next.
I think they're pivotal songs. Like I think they're deeply important. I would actually argue that those songs are more important than anything that comes off this Saves the Day album. But overall, I did enjoy listening to it more than Taking Back Sunday. But like Amorosa is a very similar album in that sense, and I would listen to Amorosa in a heartbeat over Saves the Day.
Well, there you have it, everyone.
And it's been another week. Still at the top is Bring Me the Horizon. Still at the bottom is Green Day. Once again, if you want to suggest an album, patreon.com/SOTS podcast. You can follow us on all social media at SOTS podcast. Let us know what you think of the list so far and these albums in particular in the comments of this YouTube video. Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Goodbye.